Ladies and gentlemen, presenting the Professor Greg Dooley and the pundit Steve Clark. Men, take the mic.
Michigan basketball in Indianapolis and on the brink of a national title. It's the Professor and the Pundit, and we're proudly presented by Nick Hopwood, who's a certified financial planner, founder, and president of Peak Wealth Management. Retire with peak confidence. Visit Nick's website at peakwm.com.
Our fight song is The Victors, which actually is not a typical fight song because the words do not attempt to inspire a team and the fans on to victory. The Victors celebrates a title we already won. So if our business is winning, Steve, business is booming. So in the spirit of the Victors, we have a lot of winning to discuss, do we not?
Let's start on the hardwood. Michigan men's basketball. You asked the question offline with me earlier this week, is Michigan this good? And yes, they are. And I'll tell you why, because Yaxel is a superstar right now. Cadeau is playing at near his best, and the bench of Roddy Gale and Trey McKinney are playing more dependable, and they are more clutch.
Dive in to the waters of pure Michigan.
And did we catch a Tennessee team that was a bit caught in the headlights?
You know, scoring and pace of play, not exactly the Volunteers' game. They can go through droughts like Michigan did last year, where they would go 6-7 minutes without scoring or getting a field goal. This was a Tennessee team that the Tennessee fans saw at times and disturbed them because for them, this was Tennessee's third straight Elite Eight performance, failing to make it to the Final Four. Tennessee's never made it, if you could believe that. Third straight time. I'm sure they're getting a little crotchety.
Yeah.
Down in Knoxville right now about the whole thing.
Yeah, and if it weren't for the wild ending of the UConn-Duke game, I think more people might be talking about Rick Barnes and the Volunteers and their demise. But honestly, who cares? You know, whether it's we were good, they were in the headlights, because it was absolutely BTA, as the young folks say. Steve, do you know what that means?
No, tell me.
Belt to earth. Okay. And who cares? It absolutely blew the doors off. 95-62. This is the ninth all-time Final Four. Of course, I'm counting the two Fab Five banners, which are taken down, at least now.
For now.
And you know it's bad when Sir Charles, at halftime, was already breaking down the Arizona matchup, Steve, which he was.
Because that's his team.
Yeah.
Arizona is his team. And he wasn't rooting against Michigan. He was actually rooting for Michigan over Alabama because he was tired of Crimson Tide fans being in his ear. So he got his wish, and I think we all got our wish now, the premier matchup between Michigan and Arizona. We'll have more about the matchup, and if you don't know anything about Arizona and what they're about and who the players are, you've come to the right place. So
excellent.
We'll talk about that a little bit later on, but let's continue talking about this game.
That's why you're the pundit, Steve. That's why you're the pundit.
Pundits.
But we do have to talk a little more. Now, we know everyone watched it. So in our style, like we do, a few observations. Remember in this one, and it's hard to believe now, but in the early minutes of this game, if you're a Michigan fan, you might be a little uneasy because for the things we talked about on previous shows, there were a couple lazy passes that resulted not only in turnovers, but quick scores for Tennessee, and 2 quick fouls on Mara, which is what we talked about and what we dreaded, right? Michigan on the other side, though, attacked the rim. We got the Vols in foul trouble. And then our defense just would not allow them a chance to get a good look. And the teams exchanged buckets for a while until it hit. This rout, Steve, highlighted by a 21-0 run in the middle of the first half. Dazzling passes by Michigan to open shooters. My wife asked me how it was going, Steve. I told her I'm watching the Harlem Globetrotters, okay? The defense, frankly, the Vols look awkward. They were taking weird shots, uncomfortable shots, threes that were outside their range. And the highlight for me, around 9.5 minutes to go in the half, Yaxel flies through the lane, looks like he's out of commission, flips the ball up on a reverse bucket, and one for the foul. And that was followed by 2 more threes. And Rick Barnes is frantically calling timeouts in the middle of all this just to slow us down, and he never could.
I mean, it looked like it was going to be another power dunk, and it ended up being a reverse off the glass. And towards the end of the season that Yaxel was showing up in big games. And every game the rest of the way is a big game. And that kind of started, at least to me, when Michigan played Duke. That Yaxel showed up in this big game, and he's basically been performing ever since. And Dusty May says the guy's continuing to learn the game. Each and every game, he's seeing an improvement from him, not because he decided to assert himself a little more. He's just understanding the game better, because this is a guy who didn't start at the age of 6 playing basketball, was more like 15 years old.
Yeah, and his comment that he felt disrespected, he was half joking by a freshman guarding him, but it kind of shows like his emergence to this alpha dog, that he feels that way on the court. He knows how to use his body and his physicality so well, whether it's driving or whether it's for those smooth threes that he made during the game. It was impressive. He was the story. We got our guy. I love it. So we go into the half, Steve, up 46-26. Definitely felt like it was over, okay? But we're Michigan fans. We've seen worse. And, of course, we've mentioned that Duke-UConn game, right? It can happen, right? It can happen. It just didn't seem like it was going to be the case here. There were a few kill shots. After we got to that 16-minute timeout, and I think we extended our lead, and, we're getting close to that 12. But somewhere in there, Mara just simply was open at the, near the top of the key, just drilled that three.
You want me to put the hammer down?
Totally unnecessary. I was like, okay, this is Vols fans just have to be going absolutely nuts. Of course, it looks flat, but we're talking about a guy with like a 12-foot wingspan or something. I don't know what it is, but right in the hole. Yaxel, 27 points, 7 rebounds, 4 assists, and then he had another slash, very, very similar to the early round when he went right to the hole and smashed the emphatic jam in front of the bench, and they went nuts.
You love blowouts, you say, and I like less stressful games. So there you go.
That's really what it's about. It's fun, and it's less stressful, and we're sitting here looking at SeatGeek midway through the second half. It's kind of a nice feeling. It's a nice feeling.
And a familiar one.
Well, absolutely.
It's something we're very familiar in doing.
We are indeed, because we've had a few of these. This was the biggest since 1989, which was a 37-point win by Michigan. And, of course, we went on to win the national championship here, but it's not the only one.
No. Michigan blew out another Elite Eight opponent. In 2013, they had a 41-17 first-half lead over the Florida Gators. You don't have to go too back in the Wayback Time Machine, but Nick Stauskas was 6 for 6 in that game from three, 7 and 8 from the field. It was over early in the first half, and they just kind of coasted in the second half, much sort of like the Michigan-Tennessee game. So
I watched that in mixed company with some rival fans, and yes, I might have been cheering a little too loud, and I giggled like a schoolgirl as the threes were going in, Steve, and we were extending the lead against Florida.
Can you imitate that?
Not today.
Like a schoolgirl?
Not today.
Right. I tried, folks. I tried.
Now, we're Michigan fans, right? We have to talk about the refs. Yeah. Do they understand what goaltending is? Goaltending by Michigan, they stop the game for several minutes. They suck the air out of the building and the momentum. We would have had the ball had, the play went on, had a clear rebound.
Right.
But by rule, after they overturned the goaltending, which you could see on one of the replays right away, I don't know why it took so long, but the timing of the whistle, they had to give the ball back to Tennessee. And, this is us. We're complaining. I'm complaining, Steve. What do you want from me? What do you want from me?
Here's the sequence after the refs missed a goaltending call and stopped the game for 7+ minutes. The 2-point Tennessee goaltending was waved off, but Tennessee got the ball on the arrow. 3-pointer by Tennessee, so right away they're already up. Cadeau misses a layup on the next drive, fouls on the rebound. The foul puts Tennessee in the bonus to the line, where they miss the front end, but then get the rebound and gets fouled again. Michigan then misses a driving layup, 2 threes, and the lead goes from 21 to 15 in just over a minute. Yeah, shouldn't be freaking out at that point. Why the 7-minute delay? Let Tennessee rest up, rebound, regroup, be in the huddle forever. It just came on a big run, and now you see Tennessee fighting back.
Yeah, and by the way, none of this it was close. So I could see him calling on the field, but get it, and let's get the game going, and there you go. The broadcast crew, who, by the way, missed the first goaltending. Never really talked about it until after a break, but Andrew Catalan, but particularly Coach Steve Lapis, They're taking a lot of strays today. They seemed a little lost, like not understanding some of the key sequences in the game, missing a few obvious moments, and the topper was not understanding why Yaxel wasn't advancing the ball. As the seconds are ticking off the clock, Steve, I counted them 20 seconds. A good 20 seconds went off the clock. And he's like puzzled about why he's doing this. He thought it was about the shot clock. If the shot clock isn't moving, it was the game clock, coach. How do you not know?
Coach Lapis, there won't be a 10-second violation until he touches it.
Right. Right. So we killed a good 20 seconds. I mean, it matters. Right. It mattered.
Lapis is loud, and he's annoying. And I'm glad that we don't have to put up with him during the Final Four.
That's hurtful.
Yeah, I'm glad too. We missed a bunch of first half free throws. We did shoot much better in the second half. I assume we're not going to have these refs in the Final Four, by the way. I just thought they were way too inconsistent both ways. A few really puzzling calls, Steve. So you don't think we're going to see these guys again?
I don't know. I mean, there were 4 Elite 8 games. There are 3 more games left. So they could be calling the championship game, for as far as I know. My guess is they wanted to send a message early because both teams talked about how this was going to be a really physical matchup. And the funny thing is it really wasn't that physical, and the refs could say, well, we were a part of that. But Mara's first foul wasn't even really a foul to begin with. It was a clean block. And just as I was getting upset about how Michigan's getting the shaft, and this could really spell doom for the Wolverines, they're calling a whole bunch of fouls on Tennessee's front court.
They did.
Evening out. In fact, you could argue that Tennessee got the worst of it because their entire front court had either 2 or 3 at half, and the foul disparity was more on Tennessee than it was on Michigan. So it worked out to the Wolverines' benefit, but this is a part of the Michigan kryptonite. If you can get Morez and Mara out with 2 fouls, which is about what happened in the first 8 minutes of the game, that's not great,
right,
to say the least. But yet Michigan overcame it, and they actually thrived in it.
To me,
by having that 21-0 run.
To me, that is the great news, that we did win without Mara most of his game, and he and Rez not having huge offensive games. And that to us, like we can do it different ways. The Athletic, they framed us a juggernaut, right? And the narrative here is that Michigan can win any way you want. So we'll see where it heads. But all in all, no matter what happens from here on out, Steve, and we know how it can go in the Final Four, another banner in Chrysler, the 9th Final Four banner. Nothing's going to take that away. And that is what's unique and special, I think, about college basketball, is you have these little sequences that matter. And the cream, obviously, is the achievement of the Final Four. That's where you want your team to be. Absolutely. We're there. We're excited. We've already started texting. You've probably done it. If you're thinking about going to the game, we'll talk more about that down the road. The big question now, because it appears as though the 2 best teams, or at least highly rated teams, are going to match up in that semifinal. Obviously, it's the varsity game, if you will, right. The late game. We knew that was going to happen, right? Arizona. What should we know about these guys, Steve?
Well, it is the second game of the doubleheader at 8:50 p.m. That is the tip-off. Michigan is favored by 1.5. Won their regular season and conference tournament titles, that being Arizona. They were number 1 in the nation for 9 consecutive weeks. Michigan had 5 top 10 wins before the NCAA tournament. Arizona had 6 top 10 wins. They swept Houston. They swept Iowa State, but they also beat UConn, who was in this Final Four, as well as a number 1 seed that got ousted in the second round, that being the Florida Gators. Now, their 2 losses came in back-to-back games. Everything else, they've won. Front end, back end of that. 2 games in a single week. The first was at Allen Fieldhouse in Kansas. Very understandable if you've ever experienced the environment. The second at home to Texas Tech when they had JT Toppin.
Can they match up with us in the front court? I think that's a big question on everybody's mind.
Arizona has the front court that is equal to Michigan in players like Motias Krivas, who is 7'2", and Tobe Awaka, who the Big 12's 6th man of the year, leads the team in rebounding off the bench, by the way. They're very efficient, and they rebound like Tennessee. If you notice, Tennessee was getting a lot of boards, especially offensively early on. I'd expect that type of thing may happen again. They're number 3 in the nation in free throw attempts, Greg. They put you into foul trouble. Something to watch out for Saturday. Mara and Morez were out with 2 fouls early in the first half, but Michigan overcame it. They might be in that same situation against Zona. They're 142nd in free throw percentage, so at least when Arizona goes to the free throw line, it isn't an automatic 2. But still, that's part of their game plan. Put you in foul trouble and get to the line like no other team in college basketball. They're not known to take threes, and I think people know this already, but a lot of people are saying that's their Achilles heel, especially against a Michigan team who can put up about 9 threes per game. Individually, they're led by a senior guard named Jaden Bradley, who's a third-team All-American and the Big 12's Player of the Year. At the end of games, Bradley puts the team on his back, and he changes the end of games from close to close, if you know what I mean. They have 2 impact freshmen and 5-star Koa Pete, and their leading scorer is Braden Burries. And then you got Ivan Kurchenkov as well on the front court. They have 6 players averaging more than 9 points per game.
If there was a difference when I saw us play Big Ten teams, it was clear our depth was a huge difference, and we know Michigan has depth. So what you're telling me, Steve, is that we're matching a team that has depth.
Yeah.
They have powerful guys coming off the bench.
Definitely in the top 6. Arizona postseason conference awards concluded the Player of the Year, the Coach of the Year, and the 6th Man of the Year. The most recent Ken Palm rankings, by the way, came out Monday morning, has Michigan number 1 and Arizona number 2. It's also 1-2 on the defensive ratings, but Arizona has a slight edge on the offense, ranking 4th, while Michigan is 5th. The matchups get strength versus strength. I'm looking forward to it. Some are calling this an all-time semifinal. I think it deserves the hype. Personally, the best semifinal matchup I remember people bragging about, talking about as the pinnacle for Michigan at least, was when the Wolverines faced Kentucky in 1993 when the Fab Five were sophomores.
It's probably the best game I've ever seen. I saw one of the Fab Five games against Indiana where Indiana won. Might have been the best played back and forth game I've ever seen.
Was that the game in Bloomington or the game in Ann Arbor?
It was Ann Arbor.
Yeah.
And it was fantastic. Now, I've seen Michigan State, Michigan games that were fantastic with Steve Smith, but this is probably the pinnacle of games that I've watched in person, and it was fantastic.
Yeah, I think Michigan beat Kentucky in double overtime or
Yeah.
single overtime. It was 86-84. That was the final.
And by the way, Jamal Mashburn, who you've seen on many of the telecasts,
Yeah.
he played one of the best games I've ever
Right.
seen. Yeah.
And who was his partner on those telecasts with TBS?
Who's Mashburn? Jalen Rose.
Jalen Rose?
Yeah.
So the two, a lot of people don't know that those two people squared off
Yeah.
in one of the best semifinal games ever. Maybe they'll bring that up. I don't know if Jalen and Jamal Mashburn are going to do any more coverage or not because it's down to the one channel for the Final Four. But I never saw that really get mentioned that they played on one of the great semifinal matchups that I've ever seen.
Epic, absolutely epic. And Mashburn fouled out, I believe, before that overtime or around that overtime. And obviously Michigan pulled it off. And then the fateful North Carolina game, which was epic as well.
33 years ago. Greg.
Crazy, man.
33 years ago. Some of our listeners haven't been around.
Somewhat. I
Can you
tell you
imagine
what,
that?
one of the most fun experiences, other than the very ending, which you all know about in the timeout. Crazy.
Final Four in New Orleans.
Yep. Michigan's 9th appearance. Steve, we're really good in the first one.
I think you knew this already, but Michigan, this is their 9th appearance. They've won the last 7 semifinal games. They're also 1-6 in the championship game that followed.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
this is one of those things, it's like you like to see one trend break, but not the other. You know what I mean?
I've been a real good luck charm on Saturdays of Final Fours, of Sweet 16s. You want me there in that building. You need me in that building, Steve. So if anyone's listening, still looking for one, but we'll figure it out. All right. So we had this discussion in my history of college athletics class after Michigan won the 2023 national championship. Is this the best team of all time? And I always said, I could tell you this, they're the most accomplished for sure, that team. But now that question's coming back for this team. It's probably a little easier. We don't have 12 national titles to sort through right here. But what are your thoughts, Steve?
Well, it came up because of Yaxel Lindenberg in the interview with Evan Washburn post-Alabama, where, by the way, has been misquoted by CBS now on multiple occasions about what Yaxel actually said. He says, "We might be the best Michigan team ever." CBS said, he says they're the best Michigan team ever. Well, they got to prove it by cutting the nets down, don't you think? Don't speak so soon. Yaxel said, "We might be the best Michigan team ever." Quote, "We're going to go for that." So I don't think Yaxel was speaking out of place. He was just simply saying we can get there, and that's our goal.
Very reasonable.
And I thought that was a significant quote, but they turned it into controversy, whether they do it on purpose to create controversy. But we talked about this a couple of weeks ago. I rank this as my favorite regular season of all time, but they got a lot of work to do to be the best Michigan team of all time. And I think Jalen Rose said it perfectly when asked about it. You got to cut down the nets first on Monday night, and then we can have a discussion. Well, to me, it's a short discussion, Greg, because the '89 team may have the best story. They've got the interim coach, Steve Fisher. You got Bo's famous words, "A Michigan man will coach Michigan." Glenn Rice's scoring record. Paybacks to Illinois is a huge underdog in the semifinal. And an overtime game against Seton Hall in Seattle for their only championship. It's the best storied team of Michigan basketball. But this was a team that did not win the Big Ten regular season championship. In fact, Illinois blew Michigan out at Chrysler in the final regular season game. There was no postseason Big Ten tournament back then. That just ended. And Bill Frieder says, "I'm going to go to Arizona State at the end of the season." And then all these things change.
Right.
But Michigan has done something in a regular season, not only winning the regular season championship, but doing something that no team has done since Indiana's undefeated season in 1976 and win all of their games on the road. And because it's now a 20-game conference schedule, that means they had the most wins on the road at 10.
And validated by the Big Ten's performance in this year's tournament, that it only raised the significance of their dominance in the regular season. So we will see where it ends. I completely agree. If they cut down the nets, I agree with you. The best story, that's a great way to frame it. But those weren't the only stories, Steve. In the Sweet 16, we had an incredible game, UConn and Duke. If you were switching, we actually got to caught the end. If you were locked into the hockey game, which we'll talk about for the Frozen Four, it happened right at the intermission where you could catch the end of this game, which I did. And we saw I think probably one of the most iconic and memorable shots in NCAA history.
Yeah. Braylon Mullins.
Time for madness!
His shot has to be one of the best shots of all time. I know this is recency bias, and we can let things settle down and reevaluate it. But I look at other famous shots. Obviously, it's being compared to Christian Laettner and the inbounds play. There's also Chris Jenkins, who won a championship by hitting a three-pointer. You got Valpo and Bryce Drew with the long court pass and the quick catch and flip to Drew, who nails the three-pointer on the run. These are all great moments. What separates this to me is that this wasn't a play planned out on a whiteboard chart, X's and O's, thought about it, calm under pressure after a timeout. This is in the flurry of the moment. Okay, you have UConn that probably was thinking about making the first and intentionally missing the second, miss the first, force them to make the second, and then probably play full court press and foul as they inbound the ball with 10 seconds left. Well, they put the full court pressure on, couple passes get in, and Duke tries to throw it wide open over the top. It gets deflected at midcourt. A couple of passes later, and Braylon Mullins hits a long-ass shot.
Yeah.
I mean, this isn't 23 feet away. This is probably more like 37, 38. I'm just guessing. Okay? There have been longer three-point shots. There have been more that actually beat the buzzer. This didn't beat the buzzer. There was still time left. But because of the defensive action that had to take place and the offensive action to take place, that's why I feel that this is unique.
Yeah, I 100% agree with you. They didn't have the ball. They had to get the ball to make this sequence happen. And yes, there were incredible smart changes. But you're right. All those other plays that we talk about, even Trey Burke, drawn up, this is the play, right? So the fact they didn't have the ball, had to get possession. Duke did not have to cross half court, whether they knew that or not. I assume they knew that. It was exactly on 10 seconds. But you have to add the other things. You talked about the story with the 89 team. Well, it was Duke. It was for the Final Four. But on top of that, it culminated the entire comeback, and the 3 happened to win the game by 1 point. So it had so much. And is it Ian Eagle? Is that the guy who called it?
I think so. Yeah.
Oh my God! What in the moment? What a wonderful call! What a wonderful call! And of course, Raftery and Grant Hill are just sitting back there muttering. He just crushed that call.
Ian Eagle is the replacement for Jim Nantz, so he better be good. So.
I give him so much credit for capturing that moment like he did. Yeah, it's absolutely some recency bias, but when you layer in everything that had to happen to make that work, incredible.
I think it was also Eagle that came out with the triple yaxle.
The triple yaxle. Very good. So Duke and John Shire, their coach, are getting heat, and it's taking a lot off of other coaches, Tom Izzo, other coaches who didn't meet the pinnacle, but also some of the players.
Yeah, and I want to go back to this Duke-UConn game just for a moment because it was a 19-point deficit for UConn, and they just slowly took that away. You mentioned the heat for John Shire. Why? Well, they gave up a 19-point lead, but in the semifinals of the Final Four against Houston, Duke had a 14-point lead with 3 NBA guys who were taken very early in the NBA draft the following year. They had a 14-point lead with 8 minutes to go. That was coughed up. So that's 2 kind of strikes against John Shire, who seems otherwise to be a great successor for Mike Krzyzewski. Probably a better successor than Hubert Davis is for Roy Williams. All right, another story for another time. I want to take the contrarian view, though, on Caden Boozer, who was getting beat up a little bit for the fact that why didn't he just hang on to the ball and get fouled? And it would have iced the game away. Greg, you tell me, you're in that position where you have the ball near midcourt and there's 2 wide open guys on either end. Take your pick, left or right. All I need to do is throw it over the top, and as soon as it passes over, the game is over. Or I crouch down, and they foul me, and I have to make 1 of 2 free throws. If I miss just one, then UConn gets the ball back with time to think about what play they draw up. What's more likely to happen, Greg? That you miss the free throws and give UConn a bunch of time, like maybe 4 or 5 seconds to figure it out, or I just have to throw the ball over the top. That's all I have to do. I think Caden Boozer, despite the popular opinion that he screwed it up, actually made the right decision. It just didn't work.
Okay. So I'll agree with what you're trying to say, that advancing the ball to 1 or 2 open guys was the right thing to do. Absolutely. But all he had to do was shoot it straight up in the air, just get it over those guys' heads. Yep. And so even a pump fake and just roll it on the ground and the game's over. So the execution was poor.
Yes.
But to your point, should he have just sat on it, which a lot of people are saying,
right.
I'm with you. And we're assuming, again, they knew that they didn't have to get it past half court. Maybe he didn't. Maybe someone said, maybe no one stressed that where he didn't know and thought, okay, it's getting close, I
don't know if it's more damning to John Shire, but they have a split screen of John Shire reacting as the play's happening, and he literally is pointing like an arc, go over the top.
Yeah, way over the top.
So I think he was thinking this is what you should do.
Yeah.
He did. John Shire did not crouch down in the fetal position trying to tell Caden Boozer to suck it up, take the foul, and go to the free throw line. He was motioning, I see it, go over the top.
Yeah, and credit to, again, not a scripted play, the guy who made the pass, the next pass when almost anyone probably would have taken that ball and go, okay, I just got to get this ball up in the air, drive or something, and looked for the open guy.
Yeah, Caravan had a guy on him, but that hasn't stopped people from shooting over the top before. Instead, he passes it back to an open guy who's 37 feet back. And he says, I'm just firing it. I'm a freshman. And by the way, I was 0 for 4 before that shot.
And it didn't even hit anything but the bottom of the net. I mean, what a moment. I did shout, Steve, and stun Mrs. Professor, who was in a different room, and didn't like it. Oh, no. But, it's Duke. No one really feels bad for Duke.
Mrs. Pundit was still depressed over Purdue and Iowa losing on the same day.
Kay's Hawks and Hayden's.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. So, in fact, if you want to know a secret, if I could only have one win, she said, I would rather have Purdue win over Iowa. And then she looked at me and I said, well, I guess that makes you a better parent than me, huh? Because I know the way I would go if I could only have one team win. We were having dinner and we're watching this 19-point lead, and all she says, I just want this game to come down to the final minute. As she says, it's just like, I at least deserve that. Sure enough, came down to the final shot like that, and we just screamed as you got your wish.
Wow. Insane.
It's halftime now on The Professor and the Pundit, and Nick Hopwood is joining us here in studio. And there's a lot of things that have garnered my interest, especially as I'm getting closer to retirement. Other people are getting closer to retirement. Many of our listeners are getting there. There is some interesting things that come up, especially when it comes to benefits when your mom or dad passes on their IRAs over to you. What's the danger there?
Well, Steve, imagine you're in your prime earnings years, maybe in your 40s and 50s, and you inherit this big IRA worth $2 or $3 million. Well, the rules have changed. You used to be able to stretch out that IRA over your own lifetime, which was wonderful. But now you have to withdraw all of the money within 10 years. And if you're in your prime earnings years, it's going to be a problem. It's a tax bomb that's about to go off.
Your tax bracket can go way up. It can go from 20% to over 30%.
It could be 37% if you're a high earner, and then you have to add $200,000 or $300,000 per year of withdrawals. Or maybe you have an opportunity to do some tax planning with this beneficiary IRA and get it out at lower tax rates. So that's the idea that we want to talk to people about. So we're always offering complimentary beneficiary IRA reviews.
And Nick and his partner Jim will be on WJR 760 AM Talk Radio for No Lazy Money. You'll hear that at 7 to 8 p.m. on the first Wednesday of each month.
Hats off to Illinois. A lot of buzz. They got this week to figure this out. They're going to play that wild UConn team. They're in the Final Four, and they're legit. They seem to be a lot better. A lot of people are calling them a factor, and I don't know where. I'm sure it's pretty close on the spread as we record this. Illinois might be a slight favorite over UConn. I'm not sure.
Yeah, it's gone to 2.5 now. It was 1.5 early. It's now 2.5 as of Monday afternoon. Their first Final Four since 2005. We've been saying for weeks that this group had Final Four potential because they have a lot of tools that Michigan has. They have a lot of length in their front court, but they have a lot of pure shooters. Too, even more so than Michigan did. But when the two teams played, Michigan just absolutely steamrolled them in Champaign. It was a 4-point game with 2 minutes to go against the Hawkeyes, but pulled it out at the end. They're looking for their first national title, Greg. They have not done it. Of course, they thought they were going to do it in 1989, that Michigan beat them in the semifinal in. The Flying Illini back then, but they have the second most wins in the NCAA tournament, 50 of them, by the way, without a title. If they have a problem with Michigan's physicality, which they did in Champaign-Urbana, they won't want Arizona either in either final game Monday night. They won't want to play either team. So playing UConn is probably the best hope that Illinois would have.
So if there were, we've talked about a couple coaches kind of in the crossfire. If there was a coach or at least a sequence that got everyone talking, Steve, it was the end of the Nebraska-Iowa game. Nebraska rolls out 4 men on the court for the what would be a crucial play, and Fred Hoiberg taking some strays. They did ask
Coach of the Year.
Yeah,
is that a stray?
Yeah,
Coach of the Year.
Well.
According to the coaches or the media?
I think it was the coaches. I don't want to hear about the refs in this, okay? And they're saying, well, usually a ref will go, hey, get your 4th guy out here. It's the end of the game. The refs have plenty of other things to worry about. It's not a rule that the refs, have to say there's 4 guys. So talking about the refs or any kind of blame on them, I mean, this is fundamentally bad. And I don't even know how it happens, because I assume in that huddle, everyone has the 5 guys that are going to be on the court are sitting there. So what exactly happened?
I don't know.
I haven't looked into it. They benefit from all the crazy things that have happened since, but it was pretty bad.
Nebraska was trailing by 3, but Iowa had the ball. And as they were about ready to inbound, I see a Nebraska player get off his seat along the bench very quickly, running to the middle of the court. But by then, the pass was already thrown. And they got the and 1 on the play to put the Hawkeyes up by 6 and effectively ending it. The coach's coach of the year, I assume Tom Izzo voted for him. Maybe we should have a Big Ten documentary called Tiebreaker.
Yeah, who voted for who?
On Dusty May versus Fred Hoiberg.
Honestly, I don't care about that
I know.
stuff.
Well, Hoiberg did take – he was not going to shift the blame to the officials. He shifted the blame to himself.
He did.
Well, like a good coach should.
He did, and he should take it. I mean, they have to fix that. MSU's not having a great week, Steve, once again. UConn, they fight back. They give another big lead early in the game, but they fight back, and they made a mistake at the end of the game, which isn't talked about as much, I think in part because the game was almost after midnight at this point. I don't know. Our buddy Fierce, who I have a ton of respect for his ability to be a point guard. He makes incredible decisions with the ball. To me, he's a great passer, but to me he made a huge mistake. He dribbled out the clock at the end of the game when they needed a bucket, and they only needed 2 at the time. And he dribbled it out. He kicked it off, and they got a bad 3. And he's the kind of guy that can get to the rim basically whenever he wants and get off some kind of shot. And the refs were really blowing the whistle. He just needed to get to the line. So Seth Greenberg's dream of an MSU-Michigan final, Steve, does not come to pass. So only maybe are we living in a simulation, which was my fear. If this happens, I mean, come on. And naturally, in the postgame, Tom Izzo spent a lot of time talking about himself and the future of his coaching career. And yes, he said nice things about the team, but after that, he spent a lot of time on himself, because this is the kind of coaches we've created, Steve. That's what we've done. You can blame people like us, I suppose. But we have other good stuff to talk about. We've only talked about one team that's been on this incredible run, the women, Steve, and we're recording this before they play with a chance
I know, it's
to
a
make
shame.
history. And if they beat Texas, again, either way, it's a Final 8. This is the farthest they've made it. If they get to the Final 4, again, a banner. The longest we've ever made it. They would play UCLA. I don't want to go too far because you're probably listening to this after the fact, but they're a decent matchup to UCLA, even though they have the superstar center, Lauren Betts. They played them really tough down to the last bucket, so we'll see. Before that game against Louisville, boy, if we flipped the game against Alabama in the second half in our Sweet 16, Michigan flipped the game to get to the Elite 8 against Louisville in the second and third quarter, outscoring Louisville 48-25 and putting the game out of reach. And it was nice to have a laugher. And you saw probably on social media a lot of the antics of the women's team celebrating. Good for them. Congrats to Kim Barnes-Arico for this season. And hopefully we're talking about him more, Steve, next time we come on.
That'd be great.
Yeah.
Absolutely. That would be fantastic. Let's move on to hockey.
Oh, my gosh. Minnesota Duluth for the Frozen Four. Something, as Steve pointed out last time, we're really good at making the Frozen Four. And it looked like, Steve, this would be a laugher. The equivalent of a 20-point first-half lead. 3 goals, Steve. A regular strength goal, a power play goal, a shorthanded goal.
Yes.
Steve, I call it a natural team hat trick. How about that? Okay. Jack Ivankovic rocking Marty Turco's goalie pads. Our goalie, Covey as they call him, looked unstoppable for most of the game. But Minnesota Duluth started to claw their way back. They started hitting posts. You could hear them on the broadcast. And really, really bad giveaway to Duluth to start the second, to their star. But Covey made the stop. In the third, the team swapped goals. Next thing you know, it's 4-1. But Minnesota Duluth adds 2 late goals. And suddenly, Steve, you watched, it was a white knuckler with tons of chances. You've seen this in hockey before. Our goalie literally in one sequence was both on his belly and on his back as the puck was moving around in the goal crease.
Right.
And we survived. And we got out of there 4-3. On to our 28th Frozen Four. I've lost count. We've been in 37%, more than 2/3 of all the Frozen Fours that have ever existed, Steve. Ever existed. Mm-hmm. But we haven't had a lot of luck lately, so we'll see.
Last title was 98, right?
That's right, and it was unlikely title. We won in 96. We had basically everyone coming back and a powerhouse team in 97, but didn't get it done. And then a new team took over with a freshman game winner to win it in 98. It was weird, unlikely. That's how hockey goes. Steve, do you know the team's theme song by chance?
I do not.
This has been their locker room song since the beginning of the season. It's a song by The Clash. And our listeners might remember Rock the Casbah from 1982.
Why?
Two of the players, they like the hook in the song. I don't think they understood the words or what they're talking about.
I didn't understand the words until my 30s, I think.
Yeah, and if you remember, those of you listening on MTV, their video was one of those ones that was just, to me, iconic because it was in that regular rotation. And they just played it all the time with the armadillo, walking in the scenes in the desert. And so it's kind of a funny thing to have a song from the 80s be their theme song. But the people at Yoast at the end of the year even got into it and played a clip of them. Steve, I sent you a little clip of Coach Nahr. Did you catch that clip that I sent you? So Coach Nahr was being interviewed, Steve, and someone right behind him was unwrapping something.
Yes, I did.
And it
see
turns out it was some kind of smoking apparatus. I'll just put it that way. Now, what was in it? We can debate that, but the person clearly hit it. But as the coach, so I took a video of this, Steve, and I shared it with the pundit. Steve, I put it on Twitter.
Yeah.
At this moment, it has over 10 million impressions.
Dang. Dang.
So if you think you know about social media, or this is probably more of a narrative of our culture today, that all our tweets and all this stuff, sure, they're nice, a few likes. Put something like this. It's a little controversial. How about 10 million views? And this, by the way, this does nothing for me. This doesn't help me in any way. I don't get any money for this, but 10 million views.
That's a record for you, is it not?
It's got to be. It's got to be. So that's something. Just something funny.
The highest I've ever gotten is 100,000.
Yeah,
so
it's crazy.
Once again, overshadowed. I did show that to Mrs. Pundit. Dooley not only zoomed in to show what was going on, but also came up with the Judas Priest song, Breaking the Law, which was fantastic. And I hope you don't get sued.
Thank you. No problem. I'm not worried about it.
Well, with 10 million views, you might.
They have a long list of people to get before me. But adding to another tough week for our Spartans, Steve, they probably have the player of the year and their goalie, but they lose to Wisconsin. And in fairness, people who've watched hockey this year, Wisconsin was a lower seed than Michigan State and Michigan, but they have one of the best teams, most feared teams in the country, and they can definitely go with anyone. But MSU was up 3-1, Steve, with under 5 to go, added 2 goals, quickly lost it in overtime, and based on the social media reaction, the fans are pissed.
Well, Tom Izzo blamed Michigan. Michigan now doesn't have to face 2 number 1 seeds. Western Michigan, they would have played them in the semifinal. Instead, they're playing Denver, who upset Western. And then Michigan State is out because they lost to Wisconsin. So, once again, if you just go by seeding, Michigan gets to play one of those North Dakota schools again. We'll see how it goes this time.
So, if you recall, though, we take a week off for hockey.
Right.
So, they let the Final Fours marinate, which is a nice thing.
Yep.
So, Thursday, April 9th will be the first game in Las Vegas, Steve.
Yes. Bet on blue.
Yes. Too bad that Metallica show at the Sphere, which apparently is coming, is not ready yet.
No.
Or we could go out there, maybe
No.
golf, play the occasional hand of blackjack. Yes? Okay. I'm questionable right now to be there in Vegas for this.
Okay.
All right, Steve. When you need to build AI teams that actually deliver, not someone who slings resumes, not volume of all kinds of hits and gives you a stack. They help you hire the right AI talent so your roadmap moves faster, your team stays focused, your projects don't stall. Steve, bottom line, you get stuff done. You hang banners. That's Maverick. MaverickTechnologyPartners.com. AI hiring, it's high risk. It's time sensitive. So talk to Maverick. They bring the insight, the vetting, the precision to make the right hire the first time. That's Maverick Technology Partners. Go to MaverickTechnologyPartners.com. Tell them the professor and the pundit sent you. Thank you, Maverick, for your sponsorship.
Yep. Thank you. And you, as a subscriber, could possibly have a Maverick banner put in your office.
Fantastic. That's a new thing. They might do that now. Steve, a little NIL news. Do we have time?
Oh, of course we have time.
Oh, my gosh. This got so much run. Again, the news cycle right now in college sports is so wild, especially with all the games going on and all the great stuff in Michigan. But the world stopped for a moment, and I got some texts when Dusty May revealed that he had heard that through a player's agent that one of his players already was talking to other teams. I am here to give you a news flash. Breaking news. Everyone's talking. All the players are talking. That's what agents do. They talk. Dusty's agent, oh my God forbid, is indeed taking phone calls from other teams. Women's hoops agents for our current players who are still playing are talking. That's what they do. Okay, the portal opens here in a little bit. The players and their agents have to know how much they're worth. That's how you do it. Does it mean some players might leave? And guess what? Yes, they might leave. We might not have room for everyone. We might not want everyone. We got a new point guard this year. Trey Donaldson was a great player. It was, I think, who said who went where. Changes will be made. Guys, you don't have to like it, but I'm telling you, that's how it works now. So get over it. I guarantee you, everyone who has an agent, they don't sit there and not pick up the phone. That's what agents do. Yep. When you picture Ari Gold, the agent, what is a phone in his ear or not?
Yes, all the time.
It's not just there for show. It's not edible. It's not. It works. People call. You get information. That's how you support your clients.
What was one of those chapters in Bo's biography? Get those agents off my campus.
Okay. Back when it was illegal, they can talk now and they can talk to each other. Yes, there's a line there somewhere on tampering. Of course there is. Okay. But guess what? Everyone's doing it. Everyone's talking because that's their job.
Everyone's doing it but Michigan State.
Yeah. And speaking of state, they took a stray from Kurt Signetti. Did you hear what he said about Nick Marsh?
Yes.
And
I do not have the audio for it, but
Nick Marsh coming out in gold cleats for the first practice, before the first practice.
Right. And Signetti said, not here.
No.
You're not doing that here. And then he mentioned something like this. I don't know if he's ever been talked down to like that at Michigan State.
Nope. So state star receiver back in the news. Signetti invoked the name State, and of course, all in the spirit of tearing him a new one. Pretty wild.
The funny thing is, of course, all the headlines said, Signetti rips Nick Marsh. As soon as he was done saying that, he says he's doing a fantastic job for us this spring. We're happy to have him. It's the little things that get left out. It makes it sound like, to some people, you would think Signetti decided to walk out of his office, come to a throng of media and say, Nick Marsh is ticking me off. That was not the purpose of the press conference.
And people run with headlines as we've seen already. Steve, I have a quick things I only care about.
Oh, please.
Nobody cares.
Everybody knows nobody cares.
No one cares.
Nobody cares! I care.
Shots on goal in hockey. What does that mean? Anytime the puck enters what would be the goal the surface,
mouth.
the surface area of the goal, right, where it could go in, and I believe if it hits the post, I think that counts as shot on goal.
It does not.
It does not. Okay, does not count. Everything else that's stopped. However, when coaches go through the post game and all that, no one just says, "Hey, they got 23 shots." No, they break down the quality of the chance, right?
Yes, that changed about 15, 20 years ago.
Okay, what I would like to see. And I think you could say, Dooley, that's too hard to do on the fly. I'd like to see a try to go, look, at least put them in two categories. A great chance and a shot. And just give me two categories. Just pick one or the other. So when we look at the screen, we watch the Bentley game, which Michigan dominated. For most of the game, the shots on goal were the same, but Michigan's chances were way better.
Right.
One of them was not. One of them was effectively a buzzer beater, a wrister from the blue line, which wouldn't, ironically wouldn't be in my good chance, but went in. But I think they should split it up. This is something I only care about. I'd like to see a little better data on my telecast as opposed to just a number.
I get it, because scoring chances, quality scoring chances, is argumentative. It is somebody's opinion on what's a quality scoring chance, whereas shots on goal is scientifically formulated. If you do it right, you can't be wrong. Essentially, if the puck is heading towards the net and if there was no goalie and the puck would have gone through, that's a shot on goal.
Right.
The reason why a post shot doesn't count is because the goalie never actually made a save, and that the shot on the goal ended up hitting the post, which means it really was
not on goal.
It was not on goal.
Okay.
So
we all learned
how
something.
That works.
But I'd like to see a little better data on the scoring bug. Just break it up into two pieces for me, and so you get a better feel for how this flow of the game is going. Because if you just turn it on, the score's tied, maybe we're in the second period. Well, who's adding the most pressure? That's what I'd like to see. And that's probably something, Steve, that only I care about.
Leave it to the people at CBC to do it right for you.
All right.
Greg, this is going to wrap up our program. When we do our next one, Michigan is either going to be a national champion or not, but the season is over. So we will talk about the Michigan basketball season as a whole and what's next for Dusty May, because he's involved in coaching searches and is not only a person of interest in North Carolina, but Dusty May could be feeling some calls in the NBA as well. So we'll talk about that. More on our NIL future. But for now, you have Michigan basketball, men and women, and hockey, Final Four pathways. Go Blue, Greg.
Go Blue.